For fans of Harry Potter, the fictional sport of Quidditch has been an alluring fantasy, so much so that real-life interpretations of the wizard's sport have come about. As real-world people can't yet fly on broomsticks, these attempts don't do the game justice. A player base consisting of horrible college students doesn't help either, college students, of course, being the absolute worst kind of people. So what is one to do if they want to enter the world of Harry Potter without suffering the limitations of reality and the depression-inducing mannerisms of unwashed masses? Well, they could take a trip back to the good old PlayStation 2 and play some Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. The game attempts to replicate the hypothetical nature of a Quidditch match with the same stylings of a genuine sports game such as Madden or FIFA. As such, a description of the central gameplay loop is the description of the sport itself. Players need to take the ball, called a quaffle, and throw it into some hoops defended by a goalie called a keeper. To prevent the opposing team from scoring, another ball called a bludger can be batted at the team in an attempt to knock them off of their brooms and seize possession. Although, it is much easier to tackle the other team and simply take the quaffle out of their hands. Basically, it's a peculiar combination of basketball, soccer, and dodgeball rolled into one game played at dangerously high altitudes. Of course, the back and forth of the quaffle is trivialized by the sport's intrinsic flaw. A magical ball capable of independent and speedy movements called a snitch must be captured to end the game. Whoever captures the snitch receives 150 points, whereas a score of the quaffle yields only 10. Typically, this results in the victor of a match being whoever catches the snitch, regardless of the actions during the quaffle phase of the game. This comes from the game's origins as a plot device in which the underdog team falling behind can win the game with a single heroic action from the protagonist. This is fine in a movie or book, but in an actual competitive environment effectively renders the majority of a match completely pointless. In its dedication to faithfully reproducing the sport, Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup makes no amendments to this deeply defective rule set. This isn't the game's biggest mistake, however, as it's all too easy to outscore the competition by such a huge margin as to trivialize the snitch. The game's AI provides no challenge. Even on higher difficulties, the player can win a game where the opposition never scores. This is partially the fault of the raw mechanics. Tackling of opponents can be done at huge distances and always results in success. It is rare for the other team to pass effectively enough to prevent tackling. Consequently, denying possession of the quaffle is effortless. As long as the player passes the quaffle along, the AI can't tackle the player. Every now and again they'll intercept the quaffle during a pass or hit their target with a bludger, but again, the ball almost immediately finds itself back in the hands of the player through tackling. Likewise, throwing the ball for passing and scoring is done through a gracious auto-aim system. As long as an opponent isn't in the direct path of the throw, the quaffle will find its target. The keeper's attempts to block a score are rarely successful, and when they are, it's only because the player became bored and simply stopped paying attention. As Quidditch has no time limit and only ends once the snitch is caught, a match can take any amount of time. The system causing the snitch to appear is potentially interesting. A bar at the top of the screen will fill after scoring through the successful implementation of a passing combo. What's the difference between passing and passing in a combo? Well, it's not a matter of timing or positioning as one might suspect. Rather, a pass is considered a combo if the player presses the pass button while holding either L1 or R1. As there is no reason not to, the player is encouraged to hold those buttons for the entire game, so to ensure combos. The more scores after a combo, the higher the bar grows until it meets the opposing team's combo bar, and thusly triggering a snitch chase. As it's nearly impossible for the AI to accomplish the task, matches tend to take unreasonable lengthy amounts of time, as it's up to the player to move their bar all the way across the screen to meet the opposite bar. These bars also affect the snitch chase itself. Once on the field, the game transforms into a race of sorts where the two teams try to catch the ball first. Staying in the yellow trail the snitch leaves behind gives a small increase of speed and fills a boost meter. The maximum boost available is determined by the size of the combo bar that triggered the chase. On a conceptual level, this is an incredibly smart system. It potentially could have solved the problem presented by the imbalance of the snitch. The first phase of the game could have been less about earning points and more about building meter for the second phase. Effectively, whoever builds up the highest bar has a greater chance of catching the snitch and winning the game. This implementation could have maintained the rules of Quidditch while still making the quaffle an important component. It would have been brilliant if the game wasn't so laughably one-sided. As the AI can't build up the meter, the player is always going to have a massive advantage during the chase. It's a neat idea gone to waste due to the lack of challenge. It's deeply saddening for the game to have this massive shortcoming. It actually plays remarkably well. There is a satisfying smoothness to the controls which can make it a blast to play, in isolated moments. The progression of the game is also fairly enjoyable, if a bit simple. The tutorial will take the player through a small tournament with the teams at the iconic Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. They can pick among the 4 classic teams: Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. Here the developers showcased a sincere attention to detail with the inclusion of even minor characters from the source material. Anyone remember Ravenclaw's Seeker Cho? Well, they did. After winning the tournament at Hogwarts, the selected team gets to go watch the Quidditch World Cup, where the player gets to pick among an assortment of international teams. In this section, the developers showed off their creativity with the Harry Potter universe. Every team has a specific Quidditch stadium showing off a bit of the team's home nation. The depictions can be quite stereotypical, but it's good fun to discover pieces of the world outside of England. For instance, American wizarding culture appears to be in a state of perpetual Halloween. It makes sense when you think about it. These creative decisions on the periphery of the game show great potential for a joyous dive into the Harry Potter universe. The game's clever mechanics would also be fascinating if they worked as intended. It's all tragically undermined by one fatal issue. The game simply doesn't provide enough of a challenge to be compelling. While difficulty in games is subjective, with the right difficulty dependent on the type of game, developer intent, and player skill level, Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup provides zero fight. It's the equivalent of someone losing on purpose. The game tried so hard, and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
It is with great pleasure that I award this year's Quidditch World Cup to France.